Hi everyone, this is Marmion Grimes. I'm coming to you from the American Geophysical Union Fall Meeting, and I'm here with researchers with the MicroFEWS project. And that project is looking into the intersection of food, energy, and water. And today we have Daniel Sambor, he's a PhD student at Stanford, Richard Wies from the University of Alaska Fairbanks' College of Engineering and Mines, Justus Karenzi, a master's student at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, and Jennifer Schmidt with the UAA Institute of Social and Economic Research. So to start out, can you just tell me a little bit about what the MicroFEWS project is and what you're aiming to find out?
Yeah, so MicroFEWS is looking into food, energy, and water systems in remote communities with the idea that we want to see how renewable energy systems impact the way in which communities use food and water, and where the energy comes from to help to keep food safe in cold storage or help to grow food, and then how the water is treated or how water is used to actually grow food, grow crops in communities. And the idea is, and what we'd like to do with this is try to figure out how to how these systems look in these communities, and try to put them together in a computer model, and then use those computer models to figure out how renewable energy specifically impacts how those systems work within these remote communities. And really, to talk about this, you have to consider that these communities rely really strictly on local resources. They're isolated completely from larger communities. All of their food and water, a lot of communities has to be transported. So there's lots of factors and lots of different sources that go into making their complete food, energy, and water infrastructure work.
Excellent, thank you. So maybe we could spend just a couple of minutes talking about what each one of you are doing in your particular part of the project. I don't know, would you like to start, Daniel?
Yes, so as a PhD student, most of my work comes down to computer modeling in the energy engineering space. And so I'm focusing on analyzing the different components of food, energy, water system in some of these remote communities, and specifically generating a computer optimization model to understand how much additional infrastructure should we invest in a community, and how much of that infrastructure is the optimal amount to add. For example, can we add an additional amount of solar panels into a community, and understand how it generates energy over time, and how does that affect the different infrastructure systems in the community. For example, can we use that excess solar energy in the middle of the day to purify water, so we can directly use solar energy to provide valuable service to the community, instead of having to invest in additional expensive infrastructure to store that energy in form of batteries, which might take more time for the community to understand and learn how to manage. So understanding how these different infrastructure have an effect on each other and optimize their use.
So making sure that you have the right size, because infrastructure is expensive, right?
Right.
You don't want to go overboard, or it's going to cost the community a bunch of money.
And we all know in Alaska budgets are tight these days, so we want to make sure that communities are spending their dollars in the right way and getting the best bang out of their buck.
Awesome. Richard, how about you? Kind of what's your focus in this project?
The focus we're using on this actually is to view this whole what we call the food, energy, water nexus, which is essentially just this cloud of food, energy, and water. But the way in which we're looking at this is through the energy. And so we're using energy. We're using energy as the goggles or the lens to look through. And by doing that, what we're trying to see is how much energy each piece take. So if we can add renewable energy, And a really important part of these communities is heat. So if we have any excess energy, maybe we can transform it into heat and use it to heat homes, or use it to heat water, or whatever processes require heat in the community. But not just that, but how can we effectively, like what Dan mentioned, how can we effectively use solar to provide not just energy, but crop growth? How do we best attract or take the sunlight when it's there and use it? So that's kind of the focus we're using on the energy side of things to look at the whole process.
Lots of possibilities there for sure.
Yeah.
Justice, how about you?
Yeah, so like Dr. Wies said, there's 3 legs to this. We have the food, energy, and water. So I'm coming in looking at these connections. We have, for example, a greenhouse. You need water to irrigate a greenhouse. You need the electricity for lighting. So I'm basically evaluating all these links or connections mathematically, looking at the energy requirements between, water treatment, greenhouse, and then looking at the impacts of renewable energy to these infrastructure systems. So for example, you have water treatment, you need power to, power water treatment. How much renewable can you use to power water treatment? Or cold storage unit, or the seafood processing plant. So I come in developing these energy distribution models that can be used by these communities to evaluate or make decisions regarding their food, energy, and water systems in the communities.
So you basically look at the different components that you need, and then you
Within
can come
the
up with a
field.
model that kind of shows you what's going to best meet that need.
Exactly,
Awesome.
within the community.
Awesome. All right. And Jennifer, how about you? What is your role in the MicroFEWS project?
Well, my role has nothing to do with energy modeling. I'm not a modeler in that per se. Rather, I deal more with the social side of food, water, and energy. So I interact with community members, with the communities, first see how is renewable energy affecting these communities. How is it helping? Maybe how is it falling short? What is their vision for renewable energy? Where do they want to see it go? And also looking at what is their current food, water, energy security, what influences their food, water, energy security, what can we do maybe to help improve it, and are there any connections to it? So I do a lot of engagement with the public, and in the process of doing that, I try to bring information from the community to my fellow colleagues here who are doing the modeling, so that the products from their models are things that the community members really want. So trying to ground the research that they're doing to match community needs.
Yeah, that ground truthing must be really important, because obviously, every community is different, and those 3 factors are so key in existing basically as a human in a community. And so so your work kind of makes sure that the folks doing the modeling and things like that know what's going on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some communities might have a long history with agriculture and growing stuff. So linking renewable energy to producing food, that might be where that community wants to go. Other communities might be looking at actually putting in, say, drinking water, plumbing. They might see that as a huge energy sink and want to couple renewable energy to their plumbing. And so that would be information that can be used by the engineers in modeling to say, how can we make this work?
So what is that kind of the hope when this project is finished? I don't know if it'll ever be finished per se, but because there's always more things to discover. But is this something that communities will actually be able to use? They'll be able to take your work and figure out what they need? Is that what the goal is?
Yeah, that's the hope, is that we have a framework with sort of a tool that allows us to go into a community and say, hey, here you can use this to evaluate your infrastructure, your food, energy, and water infrastructure, and to see how adding renewables, maybe it's a community that already has renewables, how would adding more impact that, or maybe it's a community that doesn't have any, and how would adding it impact your infrastructure? Would it make it better, worse? What are all the impacts?
All right, well, thank you guys for spending some time with me. This project sounds like it has a lot of potential to make a big difference for people in Alaska for sure, and probably other places as well. I hope you enjoy the rest of AGU.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.